In this lesson, we're looking at something known as indirect proof. Indirect proof works well when there are two possible outcomes. And then, if you can show that one of the outcomes is impossible, you have indirectly shown that the other outcome is the only possibility. Well, let's look at a couple of examples. We have two triangles, and we're given a pair of congruent sides and a pair of congruent angles. But we're given that another pair of sides are not congruent. And our job is to prove that the third pair of sides is not congruent. The first thing we'll do is mark the two pairs of parts that are given as congruent, angle A and angle X, side AB and side XY. And then we note that either side AC is congruent to side XZ or it is not. So what we're going to assume is that it is. If those two sides are congruent, then the two triangles shown are congruent by side, angle, side. And of course, if they're congruent by side, angle, side, then side BC has to be congruent to side YZ by corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. But of course, they were given as not being congruent. So that contradicts one of the given statements. So we have proved the opposite of what we assumed, and we have proven that side AC is not congruent to side XZ. Here's another example. We're given a triangle, and we're also given that angle B is not congruent to angle C, and our job is to prove that side AB is not congruent to side AC. Well, once again, either the two sides are congruent or they aren't. So we'll assume the opposite of what we're trying to prove. We'll assume that they are congruent. Well, if they are congruent, then angle B has to be congruent to angle C because of the if sides then angles theorem that applies to isosceles triangles. But of course, it was given that those two angles are not congruent, so what we've assumed cannot be true, and we have now proven that side AB is not congruent to side AC. In indirect proof, first, list the possibilities for the conclusion, and if you're only able to list two possibilities, you can continue. Assume that the negation of the desired conclusion is correct, and then write a chain of reasons until you reach an impossibility. This will be a contradiction of either given information or a theorem, definition, or other known fact. State the remaining possibility as the desired conclusion.